You're welcome to today's presentation of the topic, Sovereignty of God. The subsidiary aims for this particular topic will be God the controller of the universe and God the creator. So our major aim now will be to identify what we mean by sovereignty. Sovereignty is gotten from the word sovereign, and the 9th edition of the Oxford Advanced Learners Dictionary defines sovereignty as the absolute or supreme power over a country. But for the purpose of our study, we will define sovereignty of God as the absolute, complete, or supreme power of God over all that He has created. When explaining the first concept, which is God the controller of the universe, we are automatically talking about the power of God over all that He has created. The same way, when we talk about the second subsidiary, which is God the creator, we are talking about the creative ability. I want us to start with God the creator. When we say God the creator, we're talking about the ability that God has to create all the things that we now enjoy as humans. The Bible verses that we'll be looking at today will be Genesis chapter 1 and Genesis chapter 2. In explaining God the creator, we are looking at Genesis chapter 1 verse 1, where God started His creative activity. In Genesis chapter 1 verse 1, it is clearly stated that in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. The earth was without form and it was void, and darkness was all over it. It was in Genesis chapter 1 verse 3 that the explanations on how God created everything started according to the days. So, when we get to that particular part, which we will be attending to the WAEC questions, that is when you will understand the importance of this particular chronological order that we are about to state. But for now, we will just need to understand the two subsidiary aims. Now the first one, which is God the controller of the universe, is simply explaining that God that has created everything can control them. The ability for Him to create firmament, create land, create water, create everything, the Garden of Eden, simply means that He is a God that is in charge. He is the sovereign God. Now, that creative ability explains our second subsidiary aim, which is God the creator. Because it's difficult for anyone to make claim that he can control, be in charge of anything, that he wasn't even part of the making process. But of course, Genesis have explained everything, that God is actually the controller of the universe. So, we will proceed now with an example. Just imagine that you plant a garden, or you build a cage and put animals in them. Will there be a time when such animals in the cage or the plants in the garden now be in charge of themselves without your own authority over them? It's completely impossible. So that is where we get that particular point that explains everything. Because God has created everything, He has expressed His creative ability through the use of words of the mouth. Automatically He is in charge. So He controls the universe. He is the one that caused Adam to fall to deep sleep and made from him Eve. God is completely in charge. So we move on to the next part now, which is the major reason why this video was actually made. It is to attend to the WAEC question. Students over the years have been told to state chronologically or to state sequentially the first creation story, and most students have always encountered difficulties in explaining what chronologically or sequentially actually means. Today, I'll just give us an overview of how to answer that particular question. But the first thing we should know is that when we are told to state chronologically or to state sequentially, that we should state the events according to the way they happened, in the order of their occurrence. That is what is expected of us. All you need to do is to state according to the way it has been stated in the Bible. So that question will be answered using a formula which I have developed over the years. The formula is simple. It started with Genesis chapter 1 verse 3, which is the first thing that was created, which is light. So we will start it now. I'll give you the acronym, which is LFL-SBA. LFL-SBA. LFL-SBA explains the 6 days that God spent creating things. Everything He created within these 6 days have been stated in that particular acronym. If you're in the exam situation and you remember the formula which I have told you, which is LFL-SBA, then it means you have answered your question. But such questions must always be answered in paragraphic forms. You don't just state LFL-SBA and you leave it like that. The question is that you should narrate or state chronologically how God created things according to the days. So you go to Genesis chapter 1 verse 3 and you start from there, which is that on the first day God created light. Of course He needs to create light, whatever that other activities will be pictured out clearly. There will be illumination in the dark. So on the second day God created firmament. The firmament was actually used to differentiate the heavens from the earth. The purpose for which these things were created, I will just need to skip them so that we can capture the formula, which is the LFL-SBA. The other purpose we can attend to them later. So the L is simply for the creation of light, which is about the first day. On the second day, God created firmament. On the third day, God created land. On the fifth day, God created the sun, the moon, and the stars. The sun and the moon and the stars was for beautification and for the counting of times and seasons. On the fifth day, He created the birds of the air and other sea creatures. On the sixth day, He created animals and man. Then on the seventh day, it was clearly stated that He rested. So that's our formula. The LFL-SBA: light, firmament, land, sun, moon and stars, birds of the air and other sea creatures, animal and man. If you are able to get this LFL-SBA, it means you have stated chronologically according to the demands of that particular question. The method which we have stated does not make claim to answering all WAEC questions, but specifically for that which says that we should state chronologically or sequentially. That is what we have attended to. I understand that students most times encounter difficulties after writing in paragraphs and sentences. They encounter difficulties in gathering their ideas properly so that they can state chronologically in exam mode. That is for the purpose for which I have done this video. And I believe that this video has helped you to know that the acronym LFL-SBA can aid you in exam mode or anywhere else. If you're told to state chronologically, you can easily come out with a particular statement that will show your mastering of the first creation story. So for that reason, I will want to give you these particular questions now. You'll be expected to explain to us how man served as the crown of God's creation. So you will tell us that in 4 ways. You explain in 4 ways how man is the crown of God's creation. And you give us 4 explanations on the nature of God, taking cognizance of His creative ability. Write it in the comment section if you have any challenges. Maybe we'll make another video to address whatever challenge that may arise as a result of this video. But for now, I urge you to subscribe, like, and share. Hosanna,